On this episode, we talk about how David Aardsma took 3X pitching into Major League Baseball.
Welcome to the Top Velocity Pitching Tips Show with David Aardsma and Brent Porcio. Remember to follow us at Top Velocity on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook.
Hashtag pitching tips, hashtag baseball tips. The Top Velocity hashtag pitching tips show. You got to get more into it, David. Come on. You got to wake the people up.
I'm working now.
And we're here today with David Aardsma, Brent Porcio. We've got another question for the day. If you don't know about the show, check out some of the previous episodes, but if you have a question, go to those go to those social networks and ask a question.
We didn't plan on wearing the same shirt either.
So. And we answered on the show. His is darker, so because he's a little bit darker up here. He's a little twisted.
We're both there. Anyways.
All right. So I'm gonna be we're Long Beach, California, March 26th, 3X Velocity Camp. Check that out. I've got 2X or 3X Camp coming up. Also the 13th and 14th of February, some 2X camps also, one on the book for position players. But let's get started. What's our question for today? Frank Sacco asks, I'd love Dave to talk about how other minor league and MLB players reacted to the training he was doing with you guys and what they say. You know, I'm going to say it up front. I thought it was pretty cool just going to the ABCA convention and seeing like, you were just talking about like some of the guys you had played with and how they reacted to you, just seeing you bigger, obviously bigger, and I guess looking different to them, right? Yeah. I mean, what do you think they were basically saying you just look bigger, or what were they thinking?
Well, I just, I was always that really skinny guy, especially upper body. I had done legs in the past, but I really kind of got away from doing the heavy loads. So seeing me and seeing just the transformation of my body, guys, it's they're pretty impressed. And they start asking me what I'm doing, asking me about the program, what's the idea and behind it, and it's kind of
right?
What?
A lot of them are on board.
Absolutely, a lot of guys love it. A lot of guys are fully on board.
It was even cool. Talk about like when we met David Wells. You played with David, but you kind of told him about this approach and.
He was 100% saying that's exactly where it is. It's in your legs. It's driving. He's trying to create a mound with a force plate on it to see how much leg force you're actually creating. And so that's exactly with our same mindset. Like he knows that's where he was getting his velocity from when he was throwing mid 90s, and that's where we're trying to get our velocity too.
And you played with Wells, David Wells, perfect game with the Yankees. You played with him.
I didn't play with him.
Oh.
He came to spring training for 2 years. What was it, 2012 and 2013, I think it was.
So you got to play spring training?
I got to be spring training, got to play catch with him, got to hang out.
He's a
all
stud,
the time.
man. That dude is a beast.
He still looks like
he still looks great. I went up to him and I was like, David, is it true you could dunk when you were playing? He says, every year I could. He goes, I could dunk right now, but I'd pull my hamstring. That's what he said. But he's, one thing about David Wells, you think fat. You don't think fat when you're around him. I mean, he's a beast, man.
When you're actually there, when you actually get to these guys and you think like, I played with guys that people would call large or fat, like, let's say, to be honest, Jabba Chamberlain never had that the best. People would actually call him a little overweight, but when you actually see him, he is not at all. He is a muscle. Like, played with Bobby Jenks, big guy. He looks big, but when you actually see, like, Bobby Jenks was one of the most athletic people I've ever played with. I never wanted to challenge him to anything because he was so talented in everything he did. And then I remember sitting on a leg sled and having 10 plates on both sides of me sitting on top and him just repping it out like it's nothing. This man, those guys that are bigger, they're big and strong. They're just not lean. But they're big, strong animals, and they're muscle, man. That's why they got to last for so long.
So, I mean, to get back to that question, so you last year, come out of this approach. It was still kind of new to you. but you put in a full 4 months of all-season training. Then you go to spring training with the Dodgers, and just talk about some of the reactions you got, and maybe some of the, even you were talking about maybe a little of the regrets you might have had, and how aggressive you presented it.
Yeah, I think, so I was doing a lot of things. I was probably taking his program, trying to do it as much as I could. So I would be in the middle of lifting, we'd play game, go in a lift and, do a set of squats and then go right to the mound with my cleats on and do some torsion drives. And I was getting a lot of funny looks. A lot of guys saying, like, what are you doing? They've never seen a torsion drive where you're sitting with a chair on the mound, driving out. And so a lot of guys, a lot of front office guys, a lot of players, a lot of coaches would ask me what the heck I'm doing, tell me I'm crazy. But I'd explain to them that, the idea is, one, that the torsion drive is getting my body in the right positions that I want to be in, then a vulnerable position, have to drive out of it with power, explosion, feel that drive. That's what I want to get to. And the squat, I'm obviously trying to build strength, kind of trying to, build as much power as I can. So while I'm recruiting all those, all the motor units, doing the squat, I'm going straight out to the mound to use it. So I'm teaching my body how to take all these loads, how to get in the position I want to, and then get on the mound and have to use it and get out of it. So I can take a lifting and make it a pitching exercise. So essentially a normal squat that you wouldn't do anything with became, for me, a mechanical, supporter, absolutely.
Yeah, and it was cool because I was lucky. I was consulting at the time, and I was at spring training. And the front office, I had to talk to him, and I got that question from the strength coach, Brent. Why was David in his Olympic lifting shoes, going from his lift to right out the door to the mound, putting on his cleats, and then doing a drill? And I had to explain that. And it's motor unit recruitment. You're recruiting all the motor units in the heavy load, and then you're trying to, because all those motor units are active, you're trying to then use those in a mechanical movement, which is training more speeds and giving you better muscle memory as you rep it on how you want to move. And it was cool that, it was funny, I laughed when I actually got the question, but I mean, it just shows how confident David was coming out of this and presenting it. I mean, at the same time too, he probably, was your regret that maybe it was too much? I
was probably a little too 100% kind of like firm in my convictions, but I understood where this program was leading me. I understood that I didn't have it yet. I didn't want to regress to especially where I was in 2014, because that's a career ender. It's over if I continue what I was doing in 2014. So I had to be a whole new person, and so I was probably a little confrontational, just a little bit, probably more than I'd ever wanted to be in my past. But at the same time, I was kind of standing up for myself and for what this program was giving me, and I knew if I stood up for it, it was going to work, and eventually absolutely did when I got with the Braves, and you could see my velocity started jumping right towards the end of the year when I was doing more of the torsion drives. You could see things starting to happen, and my velocity was averaging 92, but during that stretch it was averaging 93 plus. So I was there, and it was coming together, and now it's continue it. But yeah, it's probably a little abrasive with it sometimes, but at the same point, I was trying to stand up for myself, which a lot of times I would have just let people walk all over me.
So how are you going to do it this year? So going in this year into spring training, you're going to do it a little differently? You're going to do it the same way, or what?
I absolutely, I could probably do it a little bit differently. Is the idea of listening probably a little bit more, saying yes, understanding it at the same time, being educated. I think the way, we talk to guys about this system when they're trying to bring it into another pitching coach that maybe doesn't like it, or a strength coach that says, no, you can't, it's not in the legs, is being educated with it, understanding what the movements are, what you're trying to do, how to speak the language of it, the biomechanics, and what everything, how it all connects. And then so when you're speaking, you're educated about it, because then they can't argue with a nonsensical argument, because you know what you're talking about. So educate yourself on as much as you possibly can, so when somebody says, well, why are you doing that, you have an answer. Don't ever do anything just because. Have an answer, have a reason, so you can explain to somebody. If Brent came to me and said, David, I want you to do this, I'd tell him, why? How is that going to change anything that I'm doing? What is the purpose of that? And if he doesn't give me a full explanation, and I'm not going to just do it. I'm not one of those people that just, I've had way too many pitching coaches just tell me do something because I want to, and I'll tell them, no, what, please explain to me how this actually will affect my mechanics.
Well, I think that's why you stuck around with this, is because we've always had that rapport where it's like, Brent, why? And I'm like, well, this is why we do that. And you're like, okay, makes sense. Or sometimes you're like, no, I'm already doing this. What about this? And I'll be like, yeah, I guess you're right. You're already doing that. But that's how we do everything. We do everything with a reason.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And I think that's what brought me into this in the first place. Everything we do, every drill we do, has a very specific reason. And every drill we do, everything we do in here, goes directly to our pitching mechanics. Right. There's nothing that cheats our mechanics. There's no drill that teaches our mechanics the wrong movements. So we're not fighting against ourselves. So every movement we do is exactly what we want to do on the mound in some way or another. So we're never teaching ourselves bad form. We're never cheating ourselves by doing something that we shouldn't be doing, and then having to step back and say, okay, how do we make this work? And no, everything we do works directly in line. So the very first drill we do in the morning, that drill will actually help us throughout the rest of the day of actually doing the next drill. Then that drill helps us into the next drill. That drill helps us into the next drill. And we can take every one of those drills and do it on the mound and make it work. And if you're doing it right, you're going to put up some good numbers.
Right, and that's the foundation of this approach, is that once you understand the biomechanical set of mechanics that you are trying to achieve at a high velocity level, then your training forms around that to try to improve that.
Yeah.
So we would never do anything that we felt like compromised those mechanics.
Yeah, so, yeah, but in general, you know, guys are really into it. Once I was able to educate somebody on what I was trying to do, I wasn't standoffish. I was trying to put it out there, like, this is why I'm doing this. This is what I used to do. This is what I'm doing now. And this is the road that's changed me. And guys really dug it. Guys listened. Guys saw the changes, especially guys that I played with or against the year before, saw the changes I was making. And a lot of guys that I played with the year before has actually called here and saying, geez, what, called a little too late, unfortunately.
To be true to David, it's a lot of the guys don't have David's work ethic, and I think it's not that they didn't. Maybe they'll come back next year, but I think a lot of them, I made the point of, if you're not going to do it like David, how can you expect to have David's results? And I think that put a lot of them back. Okay, maybe I need to look at this till the next offseason because they weren't giving themselves time. But talk about going from all those years of pitching where, yeah, you did have an understanding of biomechanics, but you didn't have as an in-depth understanding of biomechanics. What was it like pitching this past season with a real good understanding of every piece to your puzzle and how you're supposed to throw and move? Like, talk about what that was, pros and cons. What was that
the
like?
neat thing is, a lot of times I would have an outing. I remember, especially like 2007, like a lot of years I would have my velocity would be down, and I wouldn't, or just wouldn't feel the same. I wouldn't know why. I wouldn't know where the disconnect was, and I'm a player I'm a relief pitcher that's a lot of different teams, so I didn't have consistency in pitching coaches. So I'd go from one year, one team, feel great, the next year a different team not feel good, but they don't know me from the year before. They can look at video, but they didn't talk to me. And then the next year, different pitching coach, and I feel great again, and no one really knew why or what the difference was, and no one really honestly probably cared. So, because I was going, going here, going there, going here. So the neat thing is this system, I understand my mechanics, I understand what I'm trying to do, the plays I'm getting. So just like myself, when we've talked before about routine, I'm very routine oriented, but the neat thing is knowing my body mechanics, and with Brent and understanding it, I can just tell myself, like, I know exactly what I'm trying to do on the mound every single pitch. So if I don't hit places, I know why. When we're throwing and we're starting to get into our bullpens, I can tell Brent, like, this is exactly what I felt on this pitch. I wasn't separated. And Brent's like, absolutely. Like, hey, my leg went early. Brent's like, right. Absolutely.
Has that helped you?
I think it's helped me a ton.
Did it help you? Like, what was it like pitching like that when you really, in the past, you weren't pitching that? I think aware.
In the past, I had a couple cues I wanted, a couple little spots I wanted to get to. If I wasn't getting there, I didn't necessarily have the tools to know, like, to make the adjustment, or why getting there mattered, or what, down the road, what was the little thing that might stop me from getting there. So where I'm all thinking arm, like, get my arm up, but it might actually be something right that's stopping me from getting that timing. So especially in 2014, where I was just sitting there going, it's all arm, what's wrong with my arm?
When's it gonna happen?
And Brent made it extremely clear to me it was all my legs, and everything clicked once we got the legs right. So it's
So
me having that understanding.